students, in the last class we have learned about the extra-embryonic membrane and we have learned about the structures and the function of placenta. Now today we are going to learn about the process of parturition and lactation. Here, so first of all, what is parturition and what is lactation? Now remember, try to recall the different stages of fertilization. We have learned that there will be the formation of gametes, there will be fusion of gametes, leading to formation of zygote. Then that zygote undergoes mitotic divisions, cleavage, leading to the formation of blastocysts, which is called implantation. And after implantation, there will be a period of gestations where the fetus has to be totally developed. Yeah. So after the gestation period will be over, it is usually 9 months or 280 days in case of human being. So after the gestation periods will be over, now the fully mature fetus will be ready for the delivery or for the birth. Yeah. So therefore, the expulsion of the fully mature fetus from the mother's uterus is called parturition. Yes, so we go through it. What is parturition? So you can look over here. So parturition is the expulsion, means birth, delivery. The expulsion of fully formed fetus from the mother's uterus after completion of gestation period. Clear? And human beings, this particular period is how many days? 280 days, or then we say 9 months. So parturition is the process where the fully formed fetus or the fully matured fetus will be expelled, undergo expulsion from the mother's uterus after the completion of gestation periods. And mainly for this parturition, mainly for the birth of the child, it involves the vigorous contraction or the forceful contraction of the uterine wall. It means the muscles of the uterus has to undergo vigorous contraction, forceful contraction during parturition. And this vigorous contraction of the uterus or the forceful contraction of the uterine wall is called the labor. I think you have heard the term labor pain in the time of parturition. Yeah. So labor actually means that particular mechanisms where the uterine wall undergoes vigorous contraction for the process of parturition. Clear? And this parturition occurs when the gestation period will be over. Clear? Now we will see the mechanism of parturition. Now, once the fetus will be fully matured, when the fetus will be fully formed, it will send a fetal ejection factor or a fetal ejection signal. Clear? So this particular factor or the signal is given by the fully mature fetus. So when the fetus will be mature, it will send a signal that is now ready for parturition, and that particular signal that the fetus usually gives is called the fetal ejection factor or the fetal ejection signal. Now this particular factor or the signal, it will diffuse through the placenta and reaches the maternal blood. Yeah. So first thing, the fully matured fetus will release a fetal ejection factor or fetal ejection signal, and this particular signal will diffuse through the placenta and reaches the maternal blood. Clear? Now, after this, so when this particular factor will diffuse the placenta and reaches the maternal blood, now it will stimulate the secretion of the hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is also called birth hormone. Clear? It's also called birth hormone. So now there will be secretion, there will be formation of the hormone oxytocin. Now this will cause the vigorous contraction of the uterine wall or the uterine muscle. muscle. So oxytocins are responsible for the contraction of the uterine wall. Clear? So therefore this particular process is also called the fetal ejection reflex. What do they call? They are known as fetal ejection reflex. So one more time. So when the fetus will be fully matured, when they are fully formed, they will send a fetal ejection factor or a fetal ejection signal. This particular signal will be released from the fully matured fetus. Now this signal will diffuse through the placenta and reaches the maternal blood, where it will stimulate the secretion of the hormone oxytocin. And this oxytocin is responsible for the contraction of the uterine wall, which is known as the fetal ejection reflexes. Now this particular reflexes, which is known as fetal ejection reflexes, become more and more frequent, leading to more vigorous contraction, more powerful or forceful contraction of the uterus, leading to the expulsion of the fetus from the uterus or leading to parturition. Clear? But all of these factors are under the control of hormones. So now we will see the hormones that are involved in parturition. Okay, so let's see the hormones. So the first hormone is estrogen. Remember, during pregnancy, alright, there will be a hormone called progesterone. It's also called pregnancy hormone, which will maintain the pregnancy. Now during parturition, the level of the estrogen has to increase manifold. Alright, the estrogen has to counteract the level of progesterone hormone. So let's take down estrogen. So toward the end of gestation, the level of estrogen increases manifold. Why does the level of estrogen increase manifold toward the end of gestation period? Because it has to counteract the effect of progesterone. Clear? So the level of progesterone is usually high during pregnancy time. But at the end of gestation, the level of estrogen has to counteract the level of progesterone hormone. Clear? That will discuss afterwards. Why it is necessary for the level of estrogen to increase manifold? We will discuss it one by one. Now, estrogen makes the uterine muscle sensitive to oxytocin. It's very important. What is the role of estrogen? Clear? So this particular estrogen, it makes the uterine wall or the muscles of the uterus very sensitive to oxytocin. Now oxytocin, try to recall it back, is known as the birth hormone and is responsible for the contraction of the uterine wall, leading to parturition. So this estrogen will be released at the end of gestation, and it will increase manifold to counteract the level of progesterone, so that this estrogen will make the uterine wall more sensitive to oxytocin and also stimulate the fetal anterior pituitary to secrete the hormone called adrenocorticotropic hormone. ACTH means adrenocorticotropic hormone. Clear? Number 2 hormone, oxytocin, also known as birth hormone. This is the function of oxytocin. It stimulates contraction of uterine muscles. Remember this thing. Oxytocin is responsible for the forceful contraction of the uterine wall, leading to parturition. It is released from the posterior lobe of maternal pituitary gland due to the contraction of uterine muscles. So that means when the signal will be released from the fully matured fetus, that signal will hit the placenta and reaches the maternal blood. Alright, there will be a mild contraction of the uterus when the signal will be released from the matured fetus. So when there will be a mild contraction of the uterus, so that contraction of uterus will also stimulate to the release of the hormone called oxytocin. So and this oxytocin will lead to the powerful continuous contraction of the uterus. Clear? So it's released from the posterior lobe of maternal pituitary gland. Clear? It's also called birth hormone, responsible for contraction of uterine muscles. Clear? Now next hormone, relaxin. Right, it is released by the placenta. Remember, clear? Relaxin is released by the placenta. At the end of pregnancy, this particular hormone, relaxin, will be released by the placenta, and its function is to dilate the cervix. Remember that we call the structure of the female reproductive system. Alright, that we call the structure or the location of the cervix. So at the end of pregnancy or the gestation period, relaxin will be secreted by the placenta, which will dilate the pubic symphysis and the uterine cavity or uterine cervix during the labor. So cervix will be fully dilated by the action of the hormone relaxin released by the placenta. So the third hormone. Clear? The next hormone, prostaglandins. Estrogen stimulates placenta to release prostaglandins. So over here, kindly remember, relaxin is also released by placenta, prostaglandin and also released by the placenta. Now what is the function of prostaglandins? They will produce the enzyme which is essential for the digestion of collagen fiber in the cervix. So prostaglandins will release an enzyme, and that enzyme is essential for the digestion of collagen fiber in the cervix. Clear? And last hormone is corticotropin releasing hormone, which is also secreted, released by the placenta toward the end of gestation, and should help in establishing the time of the birth. So these are the different hormones which are involved in parturition. What are the hormones? Estrogen, oxytocin, relaxin, prostaglandins, and corticotropin releasing hormone. And over here, you have to remember which particular hormones are secreted by what particular type of gland, either from the maternal side or from the fetal side or from the placenta. You have to remember the name of the hormone released from each particular gland. Clear? Now, let's see the next diagram. So, can you go with the figure number 3.30 from your textbook? Okay. So, the topic is hormonal induction of parturition and labor. So, what will look over here? We have learned that the level of estrogen at the end of gestation period, the level of estrogen increases many fold, right, to counteract the level of progesterone. Now this estrogen, it will make the uterine wall sensitive to oxytocin. So look over here. So estrogen released from the ovary will induce the oxytocin receptors on the uterine wall. That means the uterine wall will become sensitive to the hormone oxytocin. Clear? Now what happens is that this particular oxytocin will stimulate uterus to contract. Clear? Because once the uterine wall becomes sensitive to oxytocin, this oxytocin will induce contraction of uterus. At the same time, it also stimulates placenta to make prostaglandins. Clear? So first thing, there will be contraction of uterus. Second thing, it will stimulate placenta to release the hormone called prostaglandin. And this prostaglandin will release an enzyme that will digest the collagen fiber in the cervix. Now similarly at the same time, these fiber prostaglandins will also lead to the contraction of uterus. So try to correlate the actions of hormones. Clear? First one, estrogens will make the uterine wall sensitive to uterus, so oxytocins, which will lead to the contraction of uterus and same time it will lead to the secretion of prostaglandins, which will produce the enzyme that will digest the collagen fiber in the cervix, and at the same time there will be the contraction of the uterus. That means there will be vigorous contraction of the uterus, and whenever the uterus undergoes contraction, it will lead to the secretion of the hormone oxytocin. Clear? So this oxytocin acts on the wall of the uterus. it leads to the contraction of uterus, release the prostaglandins. Again, there is a contraction of uterus. So these particular actions during parturition is under the control of hormones. So try to correlate the action of different hormones during parturition. Now we will learn the different stages of labor. And what is labor? We have learned about the labor pain. Try to recollect that during parturition, the fully matured fetus will be expelled from the mother's uterus. And this particular expulsion of the fully matured fetus is mainly under the control of hormone oxytocin, which will lead to the forceful contraction of the uterus, which is known as the labor. Clear? So there are different stages of labor which we'll discuss now. So first stage, dilation, stage of dilation. There are 3 stages of labor. First stage is stage of dilation. So let's see what this means. During dilation, there will be complete dilation of the cervix, and remember the name of the hormone responsible for the cervix dilation, relaxin, released from placenta. Clear? So first one, stage of dilation, where there will be complete dilation of the cervix, which is under the control of the hormone relaxin. It lasts for 6 hours to 12 hours. And what are the stages, or what are the features or the characteristics that occurs during dilation stage? First one, there will be regular contraction of uterus. Clear? Number 2, rupturing of amniotic sac. Remember, amniotic sac contains what type of fluid? Amniotic fluids. Clear? So during stage of dilation, this amniotic sac will be ruptured, and when this amniotic sac will be ruptured, the amniotic fluids will come out. So flowing out of amniotic fluids. Here, so these are the first features or the characteristics of stage of dilation. So there will be contraction of uterus, rupture of amniotic sac, thereby flowing out of amniotic fluids occur. So these are the stages of dilation. Second stage of labor, stage of expulsion, or can say parturitions. Period from complete cervical dilation to the delivery of the baby. That means where the parturition occurs, where the birth of the child occurs. It's called stage of expulsion, where the fully matured fetus will be expelled from the mother's uterus. It occurs for the last how many minutes? 10 minutes to several hours. Clear? Third stage is called placental stage or the afterbirth stage. So first stage was stage of dilation, where the cervix undergoes dilations. It is under the control of the hormone relaxin. It is from the placenta. Clear? Second stage is stage of expulsion, where the fully matured fetus will be expelled from the mother's uterus. And last stage is the afterbirth. After the birth of the child is called the afterbirth stage. Over here you can see time after delivery until the placenta is expelled by powerful uterine contraction. Distance from 10 minutes to 45 minutes. These are the characteristic features of the afterbirth stage or the placental stage, where the placenta has to come out by the powerful contraction of the uterus. Clear? So these are the different stages of labor pain. Clear? Now, what is parturition and involution? We'll discuss about it. Parturition and involution. So let's check it out. Parturition means the period during which the maternal reproductive system returns to the pre-pregnancy state. Clear? So after the birth of the child, after parturition, the maternal reproductive systems will return to the pre-pregnancy state, which is known as parturition. And the process where there will be reduction of uterus in the lactating mother, means those mothers who are producing the milk. So where there will be reduction of uterus in lactating mother, it is called involution. Clear? So what is parturition? where the maternal reproductive systems return back to the pre-pregnancy state, and involution is the process of reduction of uterus in lactating mother. Okay, remember the word parturition and the word involution. The next one, what is neonatal period? Alright, so we have different types of terms over here. So let's see what is neonatal period. So for the first 28 days after the birth, the baby is called neonate. Clear? So first 28 days. For the first 28 days after parturition, the baby will be known as neonate, and this particular period, time period, is called neonatal periods. Clear? So for the first 28 days, from day 1 to day 28, the baby will be known as neonate, and this particular time period will be known as neonatal periods. Clear? Now till now, when the fetus was in the uterus, inside the uterus, the baby was getting its oxygens, nourishment, nutrition to the mother's body by the help of placenta. Clear? This is very carefully. So inside the mother's womb, inside the uterus, all the nourishment, nutrition, and even the oxygen, it was being transmitted to the fetus by the help of placenta from the mother's body. Right? But after parturition, when the gestation period will be over, and when the fetus will be ready for parturition, and when it will be expelled from the mother's body, alright? Now, that particular neonate, I'm using the word neonate because from the first 100 days we will call it neonate. So that neonate has to undergo self-adjustment. It has to now become self-supporting. Clear? And you know that after the birth of the child, the baby starts crying. Why? It indicates the first sign of breathing. Clear? It indicates the first sign of breathing. Clear? So experiment is that till now, that particular child or the neonate was getting the oxygen from the placenta, from the mother's body. Clear? But after the birth, the baby has to become self-supporting. It has to support itself. So, at first, the baby will cry. It indicates the first breath by the child. So there has to be a normal circulating system in the child, in the baby, as well as the normal respiratory systems in case of baby. And at the same time, the foramen ovule has to close. Clear? Interarticular septum has to be closed in the heart. Indicate the proper growth of circulatory system in the neonate. And if this particular foramen ovule will not be closed, then it will indicate the hole in the heart. I think what the word. Most of the baby will have a hole in the heart. The conditions when the foramen ovule will not be closed, the interarticular septum will not be closed. After the birth of the child, this particular foramen ovule has to be closed. Clear? And the baby has to develop its own normal respiratory system and the circulatory system. So there are few adjustments the baby has to do after parturition. Clear? So remember what is neonate and the neonatal period. Now next one, lactation and breastfeeding. So after parturition, that neonate has to be dependent on the mother's milk. Clear? So now we'll see what is lactation and what is the importance or significance of breastfeeding. What is lactation? Production of milk by the mammary glands following the birth of a young one is called lactation. So after the birth of the child or the birth of the baby, the mother's body starts producing milk. The mammary gland will start secreting milk, producing milk, and this is known as lactation. The secretion and storage of milk is under the control of the hormone prolactin. Remember this one. Okay. Hormone prolactin. So secretion and storage of milk begins within 24 hours of childbirth under the control of the hormone prolactin. And the hormone prolactin is released from the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. So remember, prolactin is responsible for the secretion and storage of milk. Clear? But the ejection of milk is under the control of the hormone oxytocin. oxytocin. So don't get confused. Secretion, storage of milk is under the control of hormone prolactin. Here, but the ejection of the milk is under the control of the hormone oxytocin, and this oxytocin is released from the posterior lobe pituitary glands. Here, so initial stage of formation of milk. So after the childbirth, after the parturition, after the birth of the child or the baby, the mother starts producing milk. It is called lactation. And secretion storage under the control of hormone prolactin, but the ejection is under the control of hormone oxytocin. Now, most important term, what is colostrum? Clear? Colostrum means the initial stage of formation of milk. After parturition, after the birth of the baby, that first milk which are produced by the mother's body, actually not the real milk, it is the colostrum. Alright, so it's a yellowish material rich in protein, globulins, but low in fat. But it's very important for the newly born infant. Why? For the neonate, why? Because this colostrum contains antibodies. Clear? Colostrum contains antibodies. That's why it's very important for the newly born baby. Normal milk production generally starts 3 to 4 days after the childbirth. So at the initial stage of breastfeeding. Alright, actually not the milk which is being fed to the baby, but actually is the colostrum, which contains the antibody which provides immunity to the neonate. Clear? Now, what is the significance of breastfeeding? First one, mother's milk is ideal for the baby digestion, brain development, and the growth of the baby. You know these things. It provides protection to the infant by producing antibody, ingesting microbes or lysosomes. So it will produce antibody, it will produce lysosome, which will help in the ingestion of microbes. Maternal antibody IgA present in the breast milk prevents migration of microbes into the other body tissue of the infant. So infant will go here, maternal body contains antibody, antibody IgA, and this will prevent the entry of microbes into the body tissue of the infant. Breastfeeding reduces risk of allergy, heart disease, gastrointestinal infections, diarrhea, diabetes, meningitis means inflammation of the brain, and ear infection in the child. Very clear for you? It also protects mother from osteoporosis and the breast cancer. So these are the significance of breastfeeding in the newly born baby on case of the neonate. Clear? So here we have finished the process of parturition and the lactations. Now here task is to go through the in-text question answer. Alright, go through the book. So after into the chapter, you will find the in-text questions and the previous year's board questions. So kindly go through it. Alright, so the assignment and your homework. Clear? And we go through it. We have finished the third chapter. Now in the next class we will begin with the new chapter. Clear?